Recently, a local developer built a new shopping mall close to my house. Last time I drove by, I noticed half of it was still empty. If he had used the strategy I'm gonna teach you today, he could have leased out the entire property even before construction began. This strategy is called build to suit. And if you stick around, I'm gonna teach you how you can eliminate leasing risk for your next real estate development. So follow me to find out. Okay, so now let's going to see how to structure and execute a build to suit project. The first thing to structure and build to suit project is site selection or land purchase. Okay, you first need the land, okay, because as they say, location. Okay, so if you have a good land site, you will attract a very good tenant. Okay, so if we are talking about industrial real estate, for example, if we have a good location in Dallas that it's a logistics hubs, you can attract tenants like Amazon. But if you are in a small city, like I don't know, one small city in Texas, maybe Amazon don't want to invest there and open a location there, so you will struggle to lease and find a tenant. Okay, so the first thing is a location. So for this, you have to find places that are close to logistics spots, maybe to ports, to highways. If we are talking about industrial, if we are talking about retail, maybe we want to have a location in a street that has a high traffic. For example, in that case, we can attract a high quality tenants like Starbucks, those many build to suit projects. But basically we need a good location. And for that, we need to structure purchase agreements, contracts with the owners of those properties, or option contracts with those owners. If we don't find a tenant for those properties, we can terminate those agreements. You have to make it easy to terminate if you don't find those tenants. Okay, so this is important. Focus on the tenant. As I already mentioned, if you are looking to lease for tenants like Amazon, look for land or for properties that Amazon will rent. Okay, so if you know that they are located in big cities like Dallas or maybe Houston or maybe New York, like big consumption centers, you have to look for land in those cities, in those places. Land financing, okay? If you have a lot of money, maybe you cash purchase the land, okay? And that way you don't have risk because you already paid for the land and then you go in the next step to find the tenant, okay? But there are other ways like purchase and sell agreement. You can finance this, or maybe you can seller financing. I have a video for seller financing if you want to find out more about seller financing. Another thing is you can also build you can find an old building, okay? You don't necessarily need to find land. You can find an old building, and then while you get the permits and everything in place, you can rent out that building, okay? Maybe it's a old warehouse and it's already, this is good because old buildings are usually already zoned as the same thing you want to do the project on build to suit. For example, if you want to build an industrial project, you may find an old warehouse, okay? So that old warehouse, you will rent it out while you get all the permits in place and all the plans. And then once you get all the permits and find the tenant and everything, then you tear down that place, you demolish, and then you build the new project, okay? That's a smart thing to do. So the other thing is to rezone. If you find land, maybe you can find already zoned land, like industrial zoned land, but in most of the cases, or in many of the cases, that land it's not already zoned for industrial or for retail. So you have to rezone. So you have those two options. Maybe an old building that's already zoned for the project you want to build, and maybe find an agricultural land and then rezone to industrial or maybe retail. This is also important. You have two options here. You may involve the tenant before you sign the purchase and sell agreement. That way you don't pay any deposit, you don't lose any deposit for that, and maybe the tenant can tell you which place or which piece of land he wants to build the new project. Okay, but the other thing or the con of that, it's that you lose negotiation power. Okay, because if you already have the land, you can negotiate with Amazon or maybe Starbucks because you already are the owner or you have that place under contract, so you have negotiation power. Okay, so I prefer to purchase or maybe get the land under contract than involving the tenant. Okay, but many companies, like for example Amazon, they have relations with big developers and they are involved before the site selection. So those are two ways to do this thing. Okay, so the second thing is look for the tenant. Once you have the land, once you have the site selection, then you go look for the tenant and sign the lease agreement. Okay, so most of build-to-suit projects are triple net leases. Okay, so that means that the tenant will pay for most of the expenses. Okay, so most of the rent you get paid, it's net profit. He will pay for insurance, property taxes, maintenance. You have to make sure you sign a triple net lease. Okay, and the other thing you have to make sure, you are risking to build a new project. You have to ask for a longer term rental. So you usually build to suit are at least 15 years with renewals. For example, in case of retail, in Starbucks, they usually use 15 years with 5-year renewals. I think they have like 3 years renewals. Okay, so totally it will be 30 years for companies like Starbucks. Everything is negotiable, you already know. But since these are big projects and you will be risking a lot of money here, make sure the tenant pays for the design and the permits. You can write that on the contract, okay? Because this is not a common lease agreement. This lease agreement, it's also a development agreement, okay? So make sure the tenant pay for the design and the permits. The third thing is design and permits. We are on the third phase of the project and we now have the lease agreement. We found a tenant and now we are looking to design how they want those facilities to be designed. If you go to a tenant like Amazon, you will be interacting with the design team, so they will be telling you how they want the warehouse to be designed. Okay, but here you have to be aware that there are two ways to do this. Build to suit, the normal way, it's you act as the developer. So you hire an architect and you pay the architect, or maybe you have your inside design team, in-house design team, and you make all the plans, you make all the permits. That's the build to suit, the normal way. But there are other way that it's called reverse build to suit. Okay, so in reverse build to suit, basically you give them the power to design. They have their in-house design team and they design everything, they get the permits. Okay, so you usually lose many control over that. You only, in both of these, you finance the things. You buy the land and you finance the construction and everything. Okay, but the difference is they take care of the design and the permits. Okay, so another thing important here is once you have the design, now you have the rentable area. You can set the rent. So once you have all that area, you can set the rent here. You may have some parameters here in the lease agreement to set the rent, but usually you set the full design, or maybe you can set the rent for by square feet here when you negotiate the lease agreement. But usually it's until you finalize the drawings that you close that number into the contract. Okay, and this is also important. Never lose full control of the design. Okay, because even if you are in the normal way build to suit, or maybe you are on reverse build to suit, you don't want to lose control of the design because you are paying for it. What if you cannot get the funds to get built, to that property get built? So that affects you. Or worse than that, what if they design something that it's after they vacate the property, maybe after 15 years, then you have to lease it out again. Okay, and if that building is so special that only that company wants to rent or to lease that property, you will struggle finding new tenants. So at least you need to have some control in the design stage. The fourth thing is land closing, getting the loan, and capital stacks. Okay, so if you didn't purchase the land cash, if you are not still yet the owner of the land, then in this stage, once you have the permits and everything in place, then it's more safe to close on that deal. So you close the land. Then once you close the land and you are the owner, you can go to the banks because you have already the project, the drawings, the permits, and even not all developers can offer this to the banks. You have the tenant now before you even put one brick on the side. Okay, so there's no risk for the banks. That's why they like this kind of projects, because it's no risk for them. And usually the tenant, it's a AAA tenant, so that's a quality tenant. Okay, so they always say yes to finance this kind of projects. Okay, if your capital stack needs some investors and you need to bring in some investors, then this is the moment to go ask for investors, because again, you have everything in place now. Okay, so the fifth thing, once you have all the funds, the loan, and you have your investors and everything, and you are the owner of the land, then you go for the construction and you manage the construction. You may have your inside team, or maybe you can hire an external team to manage the construction, or you have your general contractor. And then after you finish the construction, then the tenant moves in. Okay, you deliver to the tenant and he starts to operate. And when he moves in, you can do, maybe you want to keep the property, so you may refinance the construction loan now for a long-term loan, or you may sell for an investment fund or a real estate investment trust. Okay, so you sell and you make profit there. In the next whiteboard, I'm going to teach you an example of how to structure a build-to-suit project. So let's do some math to understand a build-to-suit project. So here we have an industrial build-to-suit project. The land size is about 2 acres, and the building size it's about 50,000 square feet. So it's about 50% floor area ratio. The construction cost for this building will be about $80 per square feet. So that totals $4 million for the construction, just for the construction. The project timeline, including the site selection and design and tenant move-in, it's in construction is 2 years. And the rent, it's a triple net rent. It's $9 per square feet, which is total number on in the market range, and it's about $500,000 a year, $450K. And the sale cap rate when we sell the property, because this property we are going to sell after the construction, and that cap rate will be around 6% because it's a new property. Okay, so when you sell a new property, usually cap rate compress. Okay, And the sale price, we just divide the annual gross net operating income divided by the cap rate, and that makes $7 million here when we sold the property. Okay, how much are we making here? Okay, so we are holding this property for construction period, and the holding period while we have the loan, because this is the construction cost we are paying from a loan, and the land we are paying cash. So we are paying 1 year of holding and construction interest, and the average is about 10%. Okay, because in the construction first they don't charge you for all the loan, they just charge you while you are building. They just charge you for the payments the bank make you. So interest will be 4 million multiplied by 10% in 1 year, it will be 400K. Okay, so what is the return on investment of this project? Okay, we are investing 1 million cash for the land, and then we are investing for the interest 400K. Okay, and we divide it by how much we are making from the property. Okay, we are selling for 7.5, and we subtract the cost, which is the land and the construction cost, including the design. Okay, so that will be around 56% return over investment in a 2 years project. It's quite good, don't you think? Basically, internal rate of return will be around 28% a year. So I don't think the bank will pay you that interest. Okay, so this is a good way to make money without risking leasing that project. Okay, in this video I teach you how you can mitigate your development risk by leasing your project before you start construction. I hope you like this video. Thank you for reaching this point and watch the full video. I guess if you are still here, you like my video, so give me a thumbs up, really it helps me a lot. And if you like to receive more videos once I upload a new one, click the subscribe button. That way you will receive a notification once I upload a new video. If you want to start investing in commercial real estate, but maybe you don't have the time, or maybe you don't have the money to start, you can join my exclusive investor club and start investing from $20,000 US. You can join by clicking in the link below, and that way you will get notified once I find an exclusive investment opportunity. Thank you for reaching this point and watching the full video. I guess you want to watch more videos, so I leave you with 2 more videos here.